Hey everyone, it's Ray from the Teach Better team, and oh my goodness, I have two incredible guests. I have Dr. Dave Schmitto and Jen Moulter with me tonight as we go through putting together a lot of really good things into one very, very busy hour. We are going to kick off our conversation talking about the Administrative Mastermind that happens every single week, recapping the conversation and talking fast. And then we're going to spend the rest of the time taking your questions. So if you have any questions regarding education or the Teach Better team or any one of us, everything is open. We want to make sure that we kick off your week with a ton of positivity. So get your questions going, throw them in the comments, say hello, and let's get this started. Hey everyone, it's Ray from the Teach Better team, and I'm sure you're more excited about the guests that I have with me. Jen, Dave, how are ya?
Doing great.
I am doing amazing. You know, on Sunday nights, normally I like to just sit there with my phone in hand and just watch you talk, Ray, and I get to hang out with you and Jen tonight. This is pretty amazing.
I knew that my Sunday was going to be good when I saw Jen on my calendar. I'm like, oh man, kicking off 2021. Jen, how are you?
Doing great. Busy, but great.
You know, I do want to get into, obviously, we have a lot of people in the comments. We want to say hi to Olivia and Nikki and Danielle. I mean, there's so many people that always love to join our Sunday night get-togethers. It's kind of a theme for us. We have usually our biweekly family check-in. We're upgrading the biweekly family check-in in 2021 by adding Dave Schmitto to kind of add in this admin mastermind. And then Jen, you are kind of like the icing on the cake in my mind. But if people have not connected with both of you before, Jen, will you start us off? Like, what do you do in education? What's your role?
It's very exciting. This is my 19th year in education. I've been a third grade teacher, second grade teacher, gifted, instructional coach. And this year I made the leap to being an administrator, and I'm an intermediate school principal, grades 4 and 5. And I love it. It's my favorite role so far. So I don't know, people are like, this is a crazy year to be an administrator, but it feels good to me. So I'll take it.
I'm so glad to hear that. Dave, I know everybody already knows you. People are already shouting out in the comments, but let's just pretend, like, who's Dave Schmitto? What in the world?
Well, first of all, I'm going to say Jen is not the icing. Jen is not the icing. She's the ice cream next to the cake. She is like the thing that we go for first, and just it makes it so much better. Cake can be kind of dry. I'll be the dry, boring crust. She can be the Reese's peanut butter cup ice cream we're going to have alongside.
I do always think of you as the dry, boring part. You're right.
Absolutely. Yeah. I appreciate that. I am Dave Schmitto, year 21 for me in education. So Jen, you and I are pretty close there. Mm-hmm. I have been a classroom teacher, been an AP, an AD, a middle school principal, an elementary principal, an assistant superintendent. And now I get to hang out with amazing people like you just about every single day of the week. This is kind of what I do all day, every day, and absolutely love it.
So fun. So we are putting together two segments, which I know are really popular for our Teach Better family. You know, we do, geez, Jen, you know this especially. You've been a part of the Teach Better family forever, it seems like, but we go live a lot, and we go live pretty consistently a lot. So when we were looking at 2021 and trying to give people as much value as possible, Sunday nights, people were like, hey, we love our Sundays. So we kind of tacked on this idea of not only doing a live Q&A every single Sunday or every other Sunday for our biweekly family check-in, but also we have the opportunity to now recap our admin mastermind. Dave, you run our admin mastermind. Jen, I know you are an administrator. You do incredible things in education. Dave, can you really quick tell us, like, what is the admin mastermind if somebody's tuning in and they're not even aware of what that is?
So I feel like all I'm going to be doing is correcting you all night long, Ray. I don't run anything. I get to say go and sit back and watch magic happen. That's what running the mastermind is all about. But for those people that don't know what a mastermind group is, it's pretty simple. In this virtual world that a lot of us are living in right now, masterminds have kind of taken over the planet for professional development, professional growth. We have a Zoom room that we open up to educational leaders from really around the world twice every Tuesday at 9 a.m. and 7 p.m. and leaders just join us. And it's, I normally lead people through some protocol at the beginning just so we can make some connections and get to know each other. But then we spend the rest of our time together, the rest of the hour, just solving each other's problems. If you're struggling with something, you throw it on the table and say, hey, does anybody have a solution? Or I'm processing through something. Can somebody help me? Because being an administrator, especially right now, is extremely lonely. You feel like you're on an island so much of the time. And this just helps people connect, and helps people oftentimes connect outside of their district too, because as an administrator, sometimes it's hard to even pick up the phone and call somebody in your district and say, I'm struggling, because we all have to have this persona that we have all of our stuff figured out. So it just allows us the safe space where we can be vulnerable and open and honest. And last week we had 50 plus people join us for these masterminds from literally from Canada to Guatemala to Australia to I think we had 28 different states represented. It's amazing to hear the variety of perspectives.
That's crazy. I mean, Jen, I know you're in administration now. You've always, in my mind, been a leader. Ever since I've been connected to you, you've been such a leader in your field, but you have always carried this like collaborative mindset that blends really well to this mastermind idea. What are your thoughts on that? Do you find value in making sure that you're connected to people asking questions?
Yes. And the mastermind is it pops up on my calendar every week. And I think the last time I attended was maybe over the summer, like it was first getting started, or maybe I don't know if it's the end of last school year, but anyway, so I was there in the very beginning, and then I fell off. I think once I became an administrator, ironically enough. But I love all of that, and it's literally on my calendar every week, and something always comes up Tuesday at 9 a.m. during my day, and then at 7 I'm with my family, and I'm like, I've got to like draw the line somewhere. So definitely for the collaboration piece, right now, with us not being able to go places, like even when we could go off site for a meeting with our county or something, none of that is happening. And so it's a lot of virtual stuff where you can kind of tune out more. And I think a mastermind where we could tune in to people all over the world and hear that, there's so much beauty in that. And the whole vulnerability piece, like, yeah, I don't have my act together today, or I'm really struggling with this. I think that is, there's a huge value for that. And just the connections and hearing like, oh my gosh, this happened to you too. You feel this, you've done this. It's just really reassuring.
Well, Jen, you don't have to tune in every week. I like that you have it on your calendar. When you're available, then you pop in, and when you're not available, you skip it, because Dave does this recap every other week now on Sunday. So in case you missed the conversation, we now have a lot to recap. So Dave, I do want to start our conversation there. I didn't join the recap, or I didn't join the mastermind this week either. So I'm out of the loop here with Jen. What was discussed? What was the hot topics?
Yeah. So one of the cool things about this mastermind group is that it's evolved well beyond our Tuesdays. We say the magic happens from Tuesday to Tuesday. All the conversations that happen in between the meetings, and the meetings are just our opportunity to connect and to hold each other accountable, or to pull each other back up, or just to continue to foster relationships. We have a Voxer group now that is it is running wild. If you're a part of that, you understand. You could sit back and listen to it every night, just hear an hour's worth of messages from people just connecting, which is powerful. We have people connecting and texting and all kinds of partnerships. Over break, the day before our 12-hour live, we announced that we were not going to have a mastermind that Tuesday because of the 12-hour live. The group, I found out later on, had their own mastermind meeting Monday of that week because they were just so committed and connected. So it's amazing. But this past week was our first official time back since the holidays. And man, people were just ready to have conversations. We started off with just our get to know you, people that had a one word or commitment or a New Year's resolution, had the opportunity to share those. And we just turned it loose. We went into our breakout rooms and said, what do you have to share? And the conversations were powerful. We had people, we had some administrators just talking from their own lens, saying that over break they had some reflections, or they made some goals that they want to start some entrepreneurial enterprises, and they wanted to have some people to talk to about how to make the side hustle a reality. And we had some very real, honest conversations about that. We had people talking about the power of virtual connections and how they've really gotten to know people like they never have before. And they wanted some, I'm going to use your words, Ray, tactical and practical strategies for how to engage in those relationships once the pandemic is beyond us, and once we're back to 100% face-to-face all the time. They wanted to actually hold on to some of these things that we've learned. And then, this week we also had a bonus session on Thursday as people had to unpack some of the things that happened on Wednesday. And this week, people were just, it was so powerful, so raw, so real, with people just reaching out to each other saying, "Ooh, I need you. I need a person. I just need to lean in. I need to know that there are some strong leaders in this world. Give me faith, give me hope." And I am fired up for the direction of education in America. I feel like we are on the right track, and we've got leaders out there doing some amazing things.
You know, Dave, I do want to give you a special shout out, maybe give our network a little bit of a lens into like the background of the Teach Better team and your facilitation of clicking play in terms of the Zoom, because when the events at the Capitol building happened, the team really tried to come together and find solutions. So, you know, our blog department was curating resources, and you know, our social media group was finalizing a group to go live and discuss. And one of the things, the Administrative Mastermind, that you really sparked and made happen was an opportunity for people to come together and talk. And it to me, that was such a eye-opening experience, kind of watching that happen and seeing the results of that, because it's no longer this, oh yeah, Tuesday I have a meeting. But now it's really a community, and regardless of when you need the community can be there. I thought that was really inspiring for me, because I know that the people that were able to pop in not only got great value, but even just the follow-up conversations that were happening in Voxer afterwards. I think it really shows something special that you really made that happen, that allowed that community to get together again. So I just shout out to you for putting that all together.
Well, I appreciate it. But again, if they weren't there, I'd be sitting looking at my own computer screen. You know, it's really the beauty of this group. And, you know, I'll be very transparent. Back when I was an administrator, back when I was leading a building or even leading a district, I had the mindset that I don't need anybody else. I can figure this stuff out myself. And joining a mastermind group would have been extremely intimidating for me, to sit in a room with strangers and admit things that I didn't know. But oh my goodness, being a part of this has grown me in ways that just simply being a leader never, ever did. Just being able to connect with people and learn from people and lean into people and be open and transparent and vulnerable. It is truly life changing. So if you're an administrator, join us. If you're a leader, join us. If you're a teacher, gift this to your administrator. They don't need to know it's free. Send them the link, sign them up, say, I signed you up for this amazing thing, teachbetter.com/mastermind. And then let them know it's from you, and give them Tuesdays at 9 a.m. or 7 p.m. And we'll see them there.
I love it. That's so cool. And I like that it's the same link every week, because then you can just kind of like save it in your calendar. It's kind of mindless. Like if you can make it, great. And if you can't, then join next week, you know, no big deal. So when it comes to the discussion, I kind of want to include you, Jen, in some of the reflection of what was being discussed this week. I know that it was kind of a strange week because we were coming back from break. And then obviously we had the opportunity to meet twice for the Admin Mastermind. But you named a number of different topics that were discussed. Was there any one topic that you feel like you were either surprised to see or you think really fostered some good reflection, Dave?
So this week we had a unique advantage because you decided to have this random drop-in on Tuesday morning. And then also on Thursday morning, there was a drop-in that you guys did as well. So our group, it seemed like they were watching all that you had to say, and they came ready to have conversations about all that you had shared, which was really cool. It's really powerful that we don't have administrators and teachers. It's like it's this one big community, which is really the ultimate goal. And so to have administrators, especially on Tuesday, that had been watching and listening to your conversation, and your conversation was really about holding on to things and how do you hold on to what works. And the fact that administrators were listening to this conversation, and they came to the table on Tuesday and said, that's something we need to talk about. How do we identify all the good that is happening right now so that we can hold on to it? How do we preserve the amazing things that our teachers are doing so that this isn't just a little drop in the bucket? How do we hold on to these amazing things and let our teachers in 21, 22, and 22, 23, 5, 10 years from now, hold on to the good so that we don't have this pendulum swing that we always see in education? We have to find a way to identify what's working and then hold on to what's working.
Yeah, Jen, have you seen that as a leader this year? Educators that are doing things that in the back of your mind, whether it be routines or they're trying something new or seeing successes, that as a leader, you're thinking, not only do I need to keep doing the things that I've put in place, but I really need my teachers to continue doing these things where they're finding success.
I think the the biggest thing that I find myself encouraging and that I see teachers doing is the whole relationship building and loving the heck out of these kids. We talk about grace a lot, grace with families, grace with kids, grace with each other. December was really hard for us because we went remote. You know, we had kids this whole time, kind of spotty. We had a couple remote spots, but our whole district went remote towards the beginning of December. And during that time, we, you know, had a tree up and we were so excited for all that December funness, you know, all the things that we do with kids and I don't know, singing and just, there's just that whole buzz of excitement and sharing that with kids and wearing ugly sweaters and the kids with all the reindeer ears, all those fun things. And, you know, in the past, it was kind of like the whole holidays is kind of annoying, like parties drain us and we're like, oh my gosh, we just need to get to break. And here we found ourselves totally flip-flopped with like, it's not the same without the kids. And so the things that teachers have been holding on to is like, we did really fun, playful things here. We had the 12 days of Christmas where we would still dress up with something fun, you know, slippers one day or whatever, and we would do it remotely with the kids. And so I did virtual announcements and it'd be like, oh, look, I'm wearing my reindeer ears like everyone else is. So we were doing like the silly little things, but things that were still engaged, like whatever the kids kind of needed to engage them. And it kind of goes back to our core, the foundation of why we are doing this. And I think I've even said that to teachers, like when they were coming back from break, I said, you know, this is a time when we all start to dread it. And we're like, oh my gosh, how we got to get back into school. I said, but stop for a minute and think about those kids and think about your why. Like, why are you in this? Yeah. Like when you reflect back to that and your anchor, you're like, oh, yes, that's why. I cannot wait to see those kids. And I mean, I could not wait to see them get off the bus and give them hugs because that's why we're here. So I feel like all of those things that we're holding on to are just at the very core of who we are as educators and loving those kids. And I mean, we can get into tons of best practices and like I go to Hattie's research and Marzano and all those kind of best practices. And we were just talking about that today in the past few weeks because we're adopting a reading curriculum. And there are so many programs and packages out there, and we're like, we just need to hold on to what's really been working with teaching reading and keep doing those things and then kind of adding to our tool belt. So I don't know, I think my heart right now is just all in relationships, you know, and I am like a huge instruction, love teaching and planning and coaching and all that. But right now, like I'm so grounded in loving kids because at least that's where we are right now in our district. And that is something that totally works.
You know, it's so interesting to me, Jen. I think that you shared such a focus on building relationships, which I think every educator right now is like, say it again for the people in the back, like they're all about it. But it's also interesting, most of your examples also had to do with fostering problem solving. Teachers beyond being so committed to building relationships, they're also doing incredible problem solving while they're trying to do that. Because just like you were saying, Dave, like nobody really knew what they were going to do, how they were going to build relationships. And you've just seen educators over and over and over rack their brain over how am I going to connect with students? How am I going to teach this lesson in a way that's still engaging like it was in my classroom when I did this last year? I myself am starting 2 units tomorrow with students in 2 of my classes. And I'm thinking about, you know, I taught this last year and it looks different. And why is that? And how can I still foster those relationships and make it engaging? And there's constantly this art of problem solving and trying to be solution focused. And so I think that those 2 elements are really, really something to celebrate in staff right now as people are thinking about what they want their message to be heading, you know, into 2021. I know a lot of us have been in school for about a week or longer, and really just continuing to celebrate that is a huge win.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm concerned of, if it's okay for me to say a concern along those same lines, though, is I am concerned that the word relationships and the word grace are going to become buzzwords like differentiation and engagement that we use. And we just say, yeah, everybody needs to differentiate instruction. All students need to be engaged, but everybody has their own definition for what it sounds like, looks like, and then we just start to lose sight of it. And I'm okay with it looking different for everybody. But in the same lens, like as adults, if any of us said, I am in a relationship with somebody, we know that means that there's this new connection that's taking place. There's this longing, you're constantly thinking about that person. You're forming a bond. I'm hoping that that's exactly what we're still talking about when we say we need to have relationships in schools too. That it doesn't just mean I'm going to know the names of the siblings of all the students I teach. Like, it's got to go beyond that. And I'm hopeful that when we say relationships need to be the centerpiece, that's truly what we're talking about. We're still talking about teachers focusing on individual kids, that as administrators, that we are allowing our teachers to do that, and that we don't say, stop all the touchy-feely stuff. You've got to cover the curriculum. You've got to meet the expectations of the pacing guide at the expense of relationships. That relationships have to be defined, and we have to go all out relentlessly if that's truly what we're saying.
Dave, when were we live when we talked about grace, empathy?
Right? Yeah.
I'm going back to
a month ago. Yeah.
We did that live, which I think that it came from the mastermind, and then we discussed it on a live, and then you wrote a blog about it. Now it's coming up again. Can you please give us a little bit? Because that conversation is something I go back to in my own life.
Yeah.
So often. And I think your blog really helped other people who may have caught the live video or caught the discussion in the mastermind around those concepts kind of continue to chew on this idea. Jen, I don't know if you caught this communication, this connection that Dave gave, but Dave, tell us a little bit about that.
And so, yeah, I'm curious if there are people that are watching this that have thoughts on this, let us know, because this is still one of those concepts that's kind of evolving. But it's based off of the idea of grace, and that term that we've been using, rightly so, for 9 months now, saying that people need grace. And in my head, I picture this spectrum, this continuum. On one side of it, you've got grace, and on the other side, you've got judgment. And in my mind, grace and judgment are on opposite ends, but they have a common denominator. And the common denominator is you don't need to know the full story to give either one of those. You don't have to know why that student didn't turn in the work to give them grace. You don't need to know why that teacher had a breakdown to give them grace. You don't need to know anything about the other person to give them grace. Likewise, when we judge without knowing the full story. We judge just based off what's in our head without ever having to dig deep. But in the middle there, in the messiness, is where I think we need to be. Empathy needs to rule the day. And empathy requires action on our part too. Empathy requires us to know the story. Empathy says, I'm going to give you grace because I know the story, and I'm going to help you move beyond this. It's not just a free pass. It's not just a forgive and move on. It's not I'm going to condemn you and move on. It's requiring action on us, and it's going to require action on their part. So I'm hoping that empathy begins to take off from grace. Grace is an amazing stepping point. I would much rather people have grace than judgment, but I don't want people to just live in grace, because grace gives us a free pass too, to simply say, number one, I've got a God complex and I can bestow grace. And two, it doesn't require me to get to know your story. And if we truly think relationships matter, then we need to use relationships to know the story.
I love that concept. I know Livia's commenting that she really, really enjoyed that blog. I'm going to tell each and every one of you that blog on this concept that Dave ended up writing after a few conversations that we were having in this discussion is over at teachbetter.com/blogs. It was published like late December. It was like the first weekend of winter break. I vividly remember this one coming out. And I really thought that gave us such a different reflective lens on something that we've been working really hard to sustain in our schools and our classrooms and everything in between. So I appreciate you, Dave. I always like that you make me think about things a little bit differently. I think that we need more people in our life that always challenge our thinking. And that was definitely one that I vividly remember, like mouth open, being like, tell me more.
I'm still reconciling it myself. So we're getting there.
So good.
I love that. One thing that I think I implemented that a year or two ago is started thinking about concepts that I really want to develop in myself and make sure that I keep forefront. And I turned them into affirmations. And as I was hearing you talk, people are throwing grace around. I mean, grace and patience went together so much in March and April that I was kind of like, ugh, I kind of got a bad taste in my mouth, because I'm like, oh my gosh, grace and patience. If I hear that one more time, then I have to have grace and patience. But being in this role, I feel like I've embraced this whole notion of grace and what that means. And hopefully I'm kind of leaning more to the middle as I grow. But, as educators are listening to this and they're thinking, oh my gosh, yes, that's what I want for myself. it's really great to have that word, say, oh, I give a lot of grace with my kids and my parents and all that kind of thing. But to keep that on our forefront and to really develop that and put that action behind it and really make those connections, it would be awesome to turn it into some kind of affirmation where it's like that's like your mantra. That's something that you keep on the forefront instead of just the word, because you're right. The word kind of just gets lost because it's so kind of mainstream and it's in everybody's newsletter and it's all that, all that kind of stuff. But if we're really putting the actions behind that to perpetuate that grace, to really do it correctly, I think that would be really powerful. So I'm working on mine for the new year. I haven't quite tweaked them yet, but I probably have 10 that I record on my phone as a voice memo. Like one is love is at the center of all I do. And so it's something that I have them recorded. I listen to my own voice say them every day on the way to work. And it's just something that over time, like, you're like, yes, love is at the center of all I do. Like, that's exactly, that's what's leading me. And so if you can put something about grace in there, and that's something that I think everybody on the Teach Better team, like all this whole community, we all want to be better. And that's something that will make us better people, better humans, better educators. It would be such a powerful thing if we had something like that we could kind of hold on to lead us.
I love that. A little Stuart Smalley moment. I'm good enough. I'm strong enough, and doggone it, I give people grace. Yeah, that's awesome.
I love it. Everybody, as we are continuing to discuss not only the incredible conversation that happens every single Tuesday in the Admin Mastermind, we also want to make sure that we are taking your questions. If you are listening to this conversation, you can continue to be a consumer, but you can also be a participant by posting your questions in the comments. You have, so much here that we can discuss and hopefully connect you with some sort of idea that could start your week off strong. And we want to make sure that as you guys continue to move forward throughout your week, you're doing it with a solution-minded lens, you're staying positive, and you feel like you have the tools to be successful. So feel free to throw a question in the comment, whether it has to do with one of us here on the live video or a question about your classroom or the Teach Better team or anything in between. It's all fair game when we're talking shop on Sunday for sure.
Can I ask you a question, Ray?
Sure. I always make me nervous.
So this is a
shoutout question.
Well, and Jen, you can jump in and try to save for a little bit as well, because as I describe myself, I'm not currently living in the K-12 world anymore. This year, I transitioned out of there, and I have nothing but awe and admiration for people that this is your full-time grind. And when I say full-time, I know that it is not an 8 to 3 job. There's no clocking in or clocking out. So taking the two big points we've discussed so far, either grace, I'm curious, how are you showing yourself grace? And two, what things are you individually going to be holding on to? Because I know right now, Ray, I think you're transitioning back to that hybrid model coming up, right?
Oh,
so
yeah.
what are those things that you want to hold on to regardless of the modality, whether you're face-to-face, hybrid, or online? What are those things that you're looking to hold on to?
Yeah, I'm really seeing life right now as really this really robust deli sandwich where you just keep layering stuff on top of each other. We're transitioning into a hybrid model tomorrow. So we'll have students physically in our classroom, and then we'll see a different group of students physically in our classroom the following day. And then we also have this third group of students who will only be remote the entire time. And so we're kind of managing 150 students in like 3 different buckets is how I like to think about that. I also have a brand new student teacher who just started last week, and already, Dave, you would be so proud. She taught, really, really led the classroom, facilitated great conversation for a lot of last week, and she'll be continuing that next week. So she's kind of being thrown into the trenches. She hasn't actually been allowed, no student teacher has been allowed in the building since the beginning of the year, since about March of last year, and her first day in the building will be tomorrow. Wow. So we have some of that going on as well. And then on the flip side, we're starting brand new content, new units. We have students that are ready to dive into all the fun that learning can provide. So I do see that as just, layers and layers and layers and layers of stuff, right? Of junk, all really fun, good junk things. So tomorrow, I'm excited for all that, but I won't lie. I think there's a lot of grace and empathy being shared across the building that I work in. And I think that that's going to be a commonality between every educator, no matter where you teach, whether it's the state, in the United States or around the world, because I'm not only helping my students tomorrow transition into a new environment, but I'm helping my student teacher tomorrow transition into a new environment and transition into a new role and start teaching in an environment that she has not necessarily really been prepared for. And on the flip side, I have my colleagues in that same transition. I'm going through that same transition. And so I think there's going to be a lot of grace and empathy and reflection going on, not only tomorrow, but really throughout the week, and hopefully as long as we're in this situation. And I think that comes down to really, really believing that the goings on of your day that are affected by other people, that other people are operating truly with the best of intentions. I think that every educator, if you can go into the building tomorrow or walk into, quote unquote, your classroom, whether it's via Zoom or in person tomorrow, and say, every single thing that happens, I need to assume that the other people involved had the best of intentions when it was happening. So a student that shows up late to class, I'm just going to assume, like, they got lost. They've never been in the building before. Like, they didn't mean it. They need support. They need to be welcomed into the classroom. My student teacher, who most likely is going to make a mistake tomorrow. Come on, it's her first day teaching, right? She's going to make a ton of mistakes, right? We're going to celebrate those. She's trying something new. I really think that mindset can allow us to enjoy more of the chaos, if that makes sense, more of the unknowns. Do you know what I mean?
That's so good. And that's amazing. Jen, speaking of your idea of mantras, I used to end every morning announcements with assume the good and doubt the bad. I think what you just nailed right there, Ray, that is so good. Assume that everybody has the best of intentions. If you start to feel like, oh, they're out to get me, doubt that there's no way. Assume the good. I love that. So good.
It's not easy to do, though. And Jen, you must know this. You've worked in education and you're a building principal. Sometimes your mindset immediately goes to, well, they must have, not been trying or working that hard, or they didn't want to be here, or whatever the negative narrative is. It's not always the easiest to assume that everybody is operating with their best of intentions.
No, that was one I think I've been working on for a long time, because there's an element of us that is just like human nature, that we automatically flip to like this protection mode, like, oh my gosh, they should have known, or they did this, or you're automatically having these icky thoughts about them. And I don't know, there's something that has flipped for me this year. And I remember when I was looking for the perfect position for me. So it was May, and I wrote it down in my journal. This is exactly what I'm looking for. And 13 days later, I accepted this job. Well, during that time, I kept thinking about, I just want to love a staff. I already just started like thinking about them and like this made up staff in my head. So when I started, I was so ready just to like love and support teachers that I feel like I already have that assumption that everything is good, because I'm just like automatically problem solving. How can I support them? And I'm not saying, I hope I'm not coming across as like, oh, I'm so great in that. That's not what I'm trying to get across, but that is something that I feel like I've worked on, and I've done a good job to cultivate that and model that for teachers too, because there were plenty of years when I would not assume that. I would not assume the best. So I feel like that's something that I've been working on, and I love that whole idea. And I think that's something that we just need to keep modeling and sharing with others, and especially as we have reflective conversations about something that happened, just to go that route. So anyway, I love that all came up.
Yeah, I really think that sometimes it's tricky. I won't lie to you. So I feel like I'm in like confession right now. It's easier for me to assume the best with students and my student teacher. It's not always easy. I can't let him say this live on camera, for me to assume the best with leadership. I as a classroom teacher, things happen in the office or whatever. And sometimes my assumption is like, they're just adding one more thing, or why can't they just help me out? And I won't lie to you that I think that is detrimental to our schools. We have to really see our staff as what it is. Staff is not just classroom teachers work for principals. It is an entire living and breathing ecosystem of people that are doing their stinking best to make students' lives better through relationships and learning and everything that comes with that. And so I want to challenge all of our teachers that are listening, classroom teachers or anybody in between that's working right now. I think that it's easy to give that mindset to some, and I really, really want to challenge us all to be giving it to as many people humanly possible, because that's going to make a world of a difference as we go throughout our day for sure.
And that theme, I don't want to take it back to the mastermind group, but that theme that you just addressed right there, I will tell you, if there was a theme that came back every single week, it would be what you just addressed. No matter the role, and we have people in our group that are deans, we have superintendents, we've got principals, every walk of leadership and however you want to define leadership. And every single one of them brings to the table at some point the idea that they are a middle manager. We're all middle managers, meaning we always have somebody above us. And when I say above and below, I hope you know I'm just talking about the hierarchy here, not truly above and below. But we all have somebody that we work for. And it is hard, no matter how high up you get in this food chain, to show grace above. We can do it below. It's easy because unfortunately, that's that pride that we have, where we feel like we can bestow it below. But above, it is so hard. But everybody works for somebody. And Jen, you know this as a principal. One of the hardest things that you have to do is put on that game face and own it when you completely disagree with what you're being told to do. But the teachers look to you as though this was your decision, and you just smile and bear it and like, yep, this was me. When deep down you know it was somebody else. And the superintendent is responding to the board's responding to the state's responding to the feds. There's always somebody. And we just have to assume that everybody is doing the best with the information they have. Even if the information is flawed, they're doing the best they can.
Can I just say that I just had this conversation with my friends earlier this week about how different principals' jobs are than I thought they were. And like, I won't lie to you, how foolish is it that it took me working in on the team where I'm exposed to so much more than I was as a classroom teacher exclusively to really understand that. I mean, truly, 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 it's amazing to me how different roles in education are from the perception that they carry in our communities. And so if you're listening to this right now and you've ever felt discouraged by an administrative leader or unsupported or anything like that, obviously every situation is different, but truly it's fascinating to me how different roles truly are than the perception. And administrators need that grace just as much as classroom teachers do. I just had a parent yell at me for about 45 minutes on Thursday evening. And the whole time I was like, oh man, I hope I'm supported by my admin. One of my administrators was sitting in there and she was great. She just she was so supportive of me. She had so many nice things to say. She supported the practices I did in my classroom. And it's just funny that, those moments are kind of the ones that you sit back and you're like, whew, thank goodness I had an ally, but those exist all the time. I don't know. It's very interesting. I really truly didn't know. And I think there's a lot of us that are a little ignorant to really seeing how challenging it is to be a leader in any point of that hierarchy, whether you're a coach, a team lead, an administrator, or anything in between. It's fascinating. And you're right. It's so much easier to give grace below than up.
Well, and parents feel the same way about classroom teachers. So it's the same. Parents think that teachers can do what they want, when they want, where they want. Teachers think leaders, administrators, principals can do what they want, when they want. Principals think the superintendent can. I mean, it continues. So
interesting. Yeah. So interesting. Well, I do want to give a final shout out to anyone listening. If you have questions for us that we can answer on this busy, busy Sunday, please let us know. We really do want to be here to help you, whether it be in lesson planning or problem solving concerns with colleagues or anything in between. We'd really, really love to help. I actually have one question, if you don't mind, guys. It was sent to me in a direct message on Instagram, and I haven't yet had time to respond to it. Would you hate if I read it to you and we discussed it a little bit?
Jen is ready for this. Go for it.
Jen, all right. This is a little bit long of a message, so I'm going to try and go quickly through this. But it says, Ray, can you help me out? I teach with a group of educators who I love dearly, that all think the recent Capitol attacks were justified. They know that my political leanings are different than theirs, and it hasn't been much of an issue until now. On Thursday, one of them came to my room before school to let me know that I shouldn't talk to my students about Wednesday events because the students would know how I felt about it. And then she put in parentheses, I watched the Teach Better talk. I watched the Teach Better conversation that we had on Thursday morning on this, and she was using some of the language that was recommended in that to really foster these conversations. Another teacher popped her head in to say, this is what, this would have happened if your side had won. In fact, so she's really, really going through dreading going back to work. So she writes in here, I'm dreading going back to work on Monday. My room is adjacent to the copy machine, and it doesn't allow me to avoid my colleagues. My coworker relationships have always been a part of work that I really love. And now I'm nervous. What do I do? And this is what I really loved about her question. How do I repair these relationships while also having an opinion and agreeing to disagree? Was kind of she wrote a long message to me. So I actually read that about an hour ago, and I needed to sit with it a bit to truly respond to this concern. Do you have any insight in how you would respond to this clearly very passionate teacher who loves where she works and is struggling during recent times, not only with what's going on across the country, but also with colleagues that seem to be voicing their opinions and kind of struggling with those relationships?
My first reaction is that I'm so grateful and encouraged that she's not just shutting down or blaming or accusing or shunning almost, oh my gosh, they don't agree or they're kind of in my face about this. So I love that. And that she wants to repair, I think says a lot about her heart, and that I love that part. And that she's really trying to be proactive, even so much to say, what can I do? Taking just responsibility, I'm part of this relationship too. Oh, I love all of that. And as far as what to do, I think being vulnerable and open about it and talking real, just like we're talking now, and putting it out there and letting them know, I still love you and I still will love working with you. I want you to know what's kind of laying with me, and I would love to hear your perspective too. And I just want to talk about this like people, I think kind of keeping some of the emotion out of it, but I think it's important that they understand each other. Those are my first thoughts. Dave has all the rest of the great stuff. So
no, I guess I'll just go back to our conversation early on about assume the good and doubt the bad. You can't just assume the good when it's good. You have to assume the good when it's bad as well. And the fact that this teacher said that she knew, I'm assuming she, might have been he, knew that there were,
she, I believe.
Okay, that they knew prior to Wednesday that they had these different political leanings, and yet they still had this incredible relationship that she wants to maintain, says so much. It's not like Wednesday just revealed something. She knew prior to Wednesday that they saw politics differently, but yet they still had an amazing relationship. That is amazing. Hold on to that. I'm a firm believer that the staff lounge is a lot like social media. You will never change opinions. You will never change mindset with whatever you say in a staff lounge. Your job as a fellow teacher, as a friend, is not to change people's political leanings, religious views, ideologies, philosophies. Your job is to love, support, and plant seeds, period. That's it. There are some things that this teacher can do in their classroom, to things that were addressed on Thursday. You can still talk about love. You can still talk about acceptance. You can talk about nonviolent crisis resolution and conflict resolution, all of those sorts of things. You can talk about agreeing to disagree. You can talk about how to have peaceful debates and compromise. You can talk about democratic principles. There's so much that you can talk about without necessarily having direct political commentary. And those conversations are necessary. And those are conversations that I think that's the root of this teacher's question is, how can I continue to agree to disagree with somebody and continue to foster, have a relationship with somebody and continue to work with somebody? I mean, that is the essence of what we're trying to have kids understand from all of this as well, that is the ultimate goal, is to have conversations. You can disagree, you can respectfully disagree, and yet you can still work together. So I think this teacher just needs to recognize that what they're working through is exactly what kids need to work through as well.
So important. And I think Jen and Dave, I really focused on the same elements you did when I read this, right? Seeing an educator that Chrissy wrote it in here as well, like somebody who chose to reach out to help, found themselves in a challenging situation. And then to your point, Jen said, what can I do? And how can I repair these relationships? When, to be honest, throughout the narrative, I'm thinking, well, you didn't do anything wrong. So I really love that as we continue to ask for help, we're not only choosing to do that and finding a safe space to do that, but then our mindset is that, relationships goes two ways, and that, it takes two to tango type thing. So having that mindset of trying to repair that is so important. I do feel so much, I don't know what the word is, but I have such a heart for her going back to work on Monday. I hate the feeling of being anxious going to work. And I think that there's a lot of that going on, whether it be because of COVID or because of a tough situation with colleagues. Educators really need to want to be at work because we love our job. And so I think that her reflecting and saying, I'm stressed to go into work on Monday. I'm anxious to go into work on Monday. I'm thrilled that she's taking an approach of trying to solve that and resolve it, because you can't be anxious and stressed going to work every single day for the rest of your life. Like, that is such an unhealthy way to live. And so I really appreciate that she's identifying a problem and striving to find a solution. And I like your suggestions about really trying to see these similarities in tandem, and also ensuring that, it's not about changing someone's mindset, but, existing in disagreement. And that's okay. That's totally fine. So super, super interesting. I will actually let you know how I will handle this. I intend to record her a video saying that we talked about this in our live session, so she can go back and watch this. So thank you for reaching out. Thank you to all of you who always reach out to the Teach Better team, whether it be me or anybody in our network and on the team, anything in between. When you are struggling, when you need someone's, opinion, when you want to vent and you need a sounding board, like, that's kind of what family is all about, don't you think?
That's it. That's why they say you got to sit around the dinner table so you can talk, share, and disagree.
Totally true. I do want to give a huge thank you, Dave and Jen, for joining our conversation tonight. Jen, it's always such a pleasure to chat with you and check in with you and see how you're doing and hear from you. You've done so much to support educators, especially with the Mastery Learning Framework, the grid method. And I really appreciate that you're always somebody that educators can go to for a little bit of insight and some coaching and everything in between, and all that you do for your school. And Dave, I'm super stoked that we're going to be doing this every other Sunday together, buddy. I'm really excited. I did have a 2021 goal of trying to get a consistent live stream with you and Caitlin. So I feel like I'm halfway to my goal, and it's only January. So I'm not doing that.
Oh my goodness. Why did you never tell me about this goal?
Well, I'm telling you,
I am making this happen.
It's going to be so good. So we are already getting this going, and I really, really appreciate that you guys are here. For everyone listening, I just want to wish you a wonderful, wonderful Sunday night. Thank you for all that you do for students. We appreciate you. We see the work that you're doing, and we are here to continue to support you and celebrate with you and everything in between. We are live constantly throughout the week, but feel free to reach out regardless, because if you have questions, we want to help you brainstorm possible solutions and connect you with somebody who will help. So I wish you all a wonderful, wonderful week, and we'll see you guys later. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.